There's a Greek god who deeply regrets creating humans. And no, it's not who you think. You're falling through burning clouds. Below, entire cities crumble like sand. Millions of screams cut through the air as the earth cracks beneath your feet. The heat burns your skin. The wind cuts your ears like razors. But the worst part isn't the devastating destruction around you. It's the impossible sound coming from above. A cry that has echoed through the heavens for millennia. It's Zeus, the king of the gods himself, crying like a lost child, crying for something terrible he did, something he should never have created, you. Today you're going to discover the darkest secret of human creation, the devastating truth that made the most powerful god in the universe regret his greatest work. And at the end of this journey, you'll have to face the question that will change everything. Would you remain human, knowing you were a divine mistake? But before we discover why Zeus weeps for humanity, tell me in the comments what country and city you're watching this video from. I want to know where the brave souls are who dare to learn forbidden divine secrets.
Olympus has never been so silent. Golden palaces that once shone with eternal celebration now reflect only shadows. Zeus sits on his marble throne, but for the first time in millennia, he doesn't look powerful. He looks broken. He watches Earth through the golden clouds, and every passing second, every human breath that echoes through the winds, every tear that falls on the earthly surface pierces through his divine chest like a sharp blade. His fingers tremble against the arms of the throne. Beside him, Hera whispers poisonous words that cut deeper than any lightning bolt. "Proud of your creation, my dear?" Zeus doesn't respond. He can't, because his divine eyes capture everything simultaneously. Every war, every betrayal, every mother burying a child, every friend stabbing another in the back, every empire crumbling from pure greed. And in the middle of all this chaos, a question echoes in his immortal mind. What have I done? But you want to know the truth? There's a specific moment when Zeus realized his fatal mistake, a moment that forever changed how he sees his own creation.
It was the Trojan War, the war that would define humanity's destiny forever. Zeus watched from atop his palace while heroes he himself had inspired tore each other apart. Achilles, the invincible warrior, ripped the life from Hector with animal fury. Priam, the ancient king, begged on his knees for his dead son's body. Orphaned children cried over the still smoking rubble of their homes. But it wasn't this carnage that broke the king of the gods' heart. It was a voice, a single voice cutting through the noise of war. Cassandra, the Trojan princess cursed to prophesy truths that no one would ever believe. She stood atop the burning walls of Troy, hair in the wind, tears streaming down her young face. And she did something no mortal had ever done before. She looked directly at the sky, directly at Zeus, and screamed with all the strength in her lungs, "Father of the gods, why did you create us to suffer? Why did you give us hearts that love, only to watch them shatter? Why did you give us dreams, only to turn them into nightmares?" In that exact moment, Zeus felt something completely new coursing through his divine essence, something he had never experienced in all his millennia of existence. Guilt. Pure, devastating guilt that cut through his immortality like reverse lightning. Hera noticed the change immediately. She whispered in his ear, "Finally see what you created, didn't you?" Athena, goddess of wisdom, looked away. Even Ares, the very god of war, seemed nauseated by the human carnage. And it was then that Zeus realized something terrible. The question that would change everything. What exactly was the revelation that made the supreme god question his entire existence?
But wait, do you really want to know the truth about why Zeus regretted it? Because once you discover it, you'll never see humanity the same way again. To understand Zeus's regret, we need to go back to the true beginning, not to the creation of the first humans made from clay and divine breath. No, we need to go back to the moment of revenge that would forever define human destiny. Prometheus had committed the supreme crime against the heavens. He stole the sacred fire from the gods and gave it to the wretched mortals. Zeus, consumed by a fury that made volcanoes explode simultaneously around the world, summoned Hephaestus with a terrible order. "Create the most beautiful woman who has ever existed," Zeus commanded, eyes blazing with thirst for revenge. "Let no mortal man be able to resist her." Can you imagine what comes next? Hephaestus forged Pandora from the divine flames themselves, every curve a celestial masterpiece, every feature more perfect than any star. But Zeus didn't stop there. He planted something infinitely darker in Pandora's pure essence. Something that would spread like a virus throughout the nascent human race. It wasn't just curiosity. It wasn't just the fatal tendency to open boxes that should remain eternally closed. It was the curse of absolute human duality. "They will love," Zeus whispered as he breathed life into Pandora's perfect lips, "and destroy everything they love. They will create divine beauty and turn it to ashes. They will dream of eternal peace and wage endless wars. They will seek sacred truth and live surrounded by lies." Hephaestus hesitated, his divine hammer trembling in his immortal hands. "My lord, won't this make them monsters worse than the Titans?" And here comes the moment that changed everything. Zeus smiled, a smile so cold it instantly froze the eternal flames of the forge. "No, Hephaestus, this will make them exactly like us." Do you understand the horror of what he did? Zeus hadn't just cursed humanity with cruel imperfections. He had created an entire race in his own corrupted divine image, with all the flaws of the Olympian gods, with all the devastating capacity for good and evil, with all the insatiable thirst for power and love, but without the divine strength needed to control these destructive passions. Humans became flawed gods imprisoned in fragile mortal bodies, and Zeus had condemned his own creation to eternally repeat the bloody mistakes of Olympus without ever having the power to transcend them. Or at least, that's what he thought at the time. Centuries passed after Pandora's creation, and during the Trojan War, Zeus finally convened the darkest council in Olympian history. The gods gathered in a tense circle, the very atmosphere charged with divine electricity and terrible forebodings. His voice echoed through the golden palaces like thunder, announcing devastating storm. "I created humans in our image, but I made a terrible mistake. I copied our worst flaws, and something more." Hera rose from her throne, eyes blazing with thousands of years of accumulated bitterness. "Now you complain about your own creation? You made them jealous like me, violent like Ares, manipulative like Hermes, vain like Aphrodite." Poseidon struck his trident on the marble floor with such force that earthquakes shook the mortal world. "Then destroy them once and for all. A new flood. Cleanse the earth and start again." But Athena interfered, rising gracefully. "Some still deserve to live, uncle. Some have transcended their limitations." Olympus exploded in discussion. Gods took sides.
Aphrodite argued that human love was purer than divine love. Ares countered that human wars were crueler than any Olympian battle. Hermes insisted that human creativity surpassed that of the gods. In the center of this divine chaos, Zeus remained in absolute silence. But his eyes captured something the other gods couldn't see. Immortal human souls, scattered across Earth like stars in an endless night, he recognized not just the flaws he had deliberately planted. He saw something more, something new, something that not even the immortal gods possessed. And it was this discovery that would change everything forever. Because what Zeus saw in humanity was something that not even he himself, the supreme king of the heavens, had ever possessed. Zeus slowly rose from his throne. The movement was so majestic and charged with power that all the gods fell silent instantly. Even the wind stopped blowing between the golden columns. His voice, when it finally emerged, wasn't thunder. It was soft, broken, human. "Do you want to know my greatest mistake?" The silence was deafening. My greatest mistake wasn't creating imperfect humans. It was taking so long to realize that they are better than us. Hera let out a bitter laugh. "Impossible! Impossible!" Zeus turned to her, divine tears streaming down his immortal face. "Hera, when was the last time you sacrificed yourself for a stranger? When was the last time Ares showed mercy? When did Poseidon forgive an offense without revenge?" The gods looked at each other, uncomfortable. Zeus continued, his voice growing in intensity. "They die, Hera. They die knowing they have only a few decades of life, and still they sacrifice themselves for complete strangers. They suffer devastating losses and still find strength to comfort others in pain. They fail terribly and get up the next day to try again." Hermes whispered, "Father." "We!" Zeus shouted, and lightning cut across the sky. "We immortals! We repeat the same mistakes for millennia without learning anything. We hold grudges for centuries. We revenge ourselves for insignificant offenses. They, in their tiny lives of 60, 70 years, evolve more than we have evolved in eons." The revelation hit Olympus like lightning directly to the heart of every god present. Aphrodite whispered, "You're saying that I envy my own creation? Yes. That I regret making them mortal? Yes. That I wish I could undo their mortality, but know that would make them like us? Yes." He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, there was deep and painful acceptance in them. "I created imperfect gods trapped in mortal bodies, and that imperfection, that fragility, that mortality makes them perfect in a way we will never be." And then the question that would echo through the centuries: if humanity were immortal like the gods, would it be better, or would it become exactly like them? This question was about to be answered in a way no god expected.
Olympus plunged into a silence deeper than Tartarus itself. Each god processed Zeus's impossible confession, trying to understand how their divine superiority had transformed into envy. For thousands of years, they had considered themselves the supreme beings of creation. Now they discovered they were just failed versions of their own work. But then, something changed in the air. A familiar but terrifying presence began to form in the shadows between the golden columns. The cutting cold of 1,000 winters filled the celestial palace. Dewdrops froze instantly. The gods looked at each other, recognizing the signs. A low, hoarse laugh echoed through the golden clouds, a laugh that didn't come from above, from the celestial palaces. It came from below, from the darkest depths of existence. No, Zeus whispered, his face paling with a terror that no mortal had ever seen on divine features. The shadows condensed, taking human form. Hair black as the void between stars, eyes that reflected the death of entire galaxies, a cloak that seemed to absorb the very light of Olympus. Hades emerged from the darkness like black smoke gaining substance, a somber smile dancing on his pale marble lips. Dear brother, what a truly touching revelation, moving even. The air around froze instantly, ice crystals forming in the very breath of the gods. Zeus paled in a way no divinity had witnessed in millennia of existence. Hades, I beg you, don't. Oh, but I must, my brother. Hades walked slowly among the terrified gods, his black cloak leaving trails of ice and death where it touched the golden floor. The gods approached involuntarily, hungry for deeper revelations, even knowing that some truths destroy those who learn them. Tell them, Zeus. Hades' voice echoed like cracking tombstones. Tell them about the real reason for your regret. Tell them about the prophecy that our grandmother Gaia whispered in your ear, the exact moment you gave life to the first human being. Zeus closed his eyes as if unbearable physical pain was tearing through him, ripping his very immortal essence. Hades smiled more broadly, savoring every second of divine terror. The prophecy that says very soon, sooner than anyone imagines, a mortal will transcend their own nature, that they will become more powerful than all of us combined, and that they will replace us as the supreme ruler of all creation. The silence that followed was no longer philosophical contemplation about the nature of humanity. It was pure terror crystallized in the form of eternity. Tell them, dear brother, Hades whispered like a venomous serpent. Tell them about the human destined to dethrone the gods themselves, about the one who will inherit our absolute power and prove to be an infinitely better god than we have ever been. But the revelation wasn't over yet. The worst was still to come.
Tell them also, Hades continued, savoring each word like bitter wine, about exactly when this will happen. Zeus closed his eyes, and the prophecy echoed in his mind like a funeral bell. From your creation will come your ruin. A mortal will transcend immortality and inherit the heavens. And when that day comes, the ancient gods will become merely legends whispered. Now, everything made terrible sense. His regret wasn't just misdirected paternal love. It wasn't just guilt over human imperfection. It was fear, pure fear, that his greatest creation would become his final doom. Hera whispered with a trembling voice, "So, do we destroy humanity before it's too late?" Zeus opened his eyes. In them was a decision that would shake the very foundations of reality. No. Athena screamed, "Father, this is divine suicide!" Perhaps it is. Zeus smiled with deep melancholy. Or perhaps it's justice. We created flawed gods. We've been capricious tyrants for millennia. If a human can be a better god than us, if they can use our power with more wisdom, more compassion, more justice, he looked at each god present. Perhaps they deserve our place. Olympus trembled, not metaphorically, literally. The marble columns cracked with the magnitude of the decision. The golden floor split in fissures that spread like spiderwebs, because Zeus, king of the gods, had made the most difficult decision of his immortal existence, to allow his own power to be surpassed. And you Would you surrender your power knowing it would be used more wisely by another? Would you give up everything you are so that something better could be born?
The floor of Olympus completely splits beneath your feet. You fall again through the clouds, but this time you're not alone. Other figures fall beside you like shooting stars. Demigods with bright eyes, mortal heroes with golden auras, ordinary humans who somehow transcended their limitations. A divine voice echoes through the free fall, but you can't identify if it's Zeus, Hades, or something much more ancient. The prophecy has already begun. The chosen ones are awakening. You look at your own hands as you fall. They glow with pulsing golden energy. Your eyes catch details you never noticed before. Your mind processes thoughts that seem to come from a divine source. Below, a new reality forms before your eyes. It's no longer the earth you knew. It's something between the mortal world and the divine, a realm where ancient rules don't apply, where the prophecy will finally be fulfilled. And you're part of that cosmic transformation that's just beginning.
Zeus's voice echoes one last time across dimensions, carrying a weight that spans millennia. Forgive me for what you're about to become. And then you understand. The realization hits like lightning directly into your consciousness. You're not just a witness to this story. You're not just a spectator of divine regret. You're part of the prophecy. You're one of the chosen to inherit the power of the gods. But here's the truth that Zeus learned too late. With great power comes not just great responsibility, comes the curse of divine responsibility, the weight of decisions that affect millions, the loneliness of absolute command. Would you make the same mistakes as Zeus? Would you create your own imperfections? Or would you be the god that humanity deserves, but that you might not be able to bear being? If you want to discover your true role in the fall of the gods and the rise of mortals, subscribe now and hit the bell. The next chapter will reveal which of the demigods will be the first to completely transcend their humanity and the terrible price they'll pay for that power. Because not everyone who tried to become gods remained human in the process.